Our guest for today's Coffee Talk podcast started their career in 1980 in insurance as an underwriter for Fidelity and Surety Department for Fireman's Fund Insurance. After 1 year, he was promoted as a contract surety underwriter. Then May of 84, Tom started his career with Safeco as a marketing rep in the Little Rock, Arkansas area. In 85, they moved to Memphis, and he continued his role in Arkansas, Tennessee, and Mississippi. He did leave Safeco back in 1987, but rejoined in 1992 and has been there ever since. As a board of directors for one of the largest homeowner associations in Little Rock, that led to being president of the organization. And he likes riding his bike outdoors, his recumbent bike indoors, and he loves gadgets and tinkering and playing with apps. Tom, I'd like to thank you for joining me for today's Coffee Talk episode. We have Tom Elser of Safeco Insurance.
Well, thank you, LaDonna. Looking forward to this. Yes, thank you for inviting me.
Would you like to elaborate more on your insurance career?
Yes, kind of took a lot of different twists and turns. Started out in surety underwriting, and then we relocated to Little Rock, Arkansas in 1984. It's been a lot of ups and downs, reorganizations within the company, reorganizations going on in the industry. But it's been, I've had a lot of different jobs. I've been in management twice with Safeco, two different distinct times for a period of 1 to 3 to 4 years, but it's been great. I wouldn't change a thing. I really wouldn't. It's been a great learning experience. Yeah.
What are some stories that you can share with us from those underwriting days?
I'll share one here real quick, and I've said this a few times. When in underwriting, sometimes they have what we call the underwriting book or underwriting manual. It's tempting to cut corners. It doesn't work out very well when you cut corners. You can do that occasionally here or there, but you don't want to make it a habit. And my largest loss I ever had was cutting corners. So that's the first thing that I would probably pass along. The second one is that you have a letter of underwriting authority, and it's clear that, and it's usually in writing. It's either back in the old days, we had it on paper, but nowadays it's on a computer. It's important you stay within the letter of the underwriting authority. If it goes above that, you as an underwriter have a manager. You can always take that to your manager and discuss it. And that's even more important when you're 22 and 25 and 28, because you really need somebody with more experience. Yeah, to kind of help you, guide you along.
What are some highlights and benefits of having a Safeco policy for the insured?
Yeah, so I think one of the highlights is that we're a national carrier, so that as your customers, as the agent's customers move, they move to Oklahoma or they move to Oregon. We can write that business. The agency, if they are set up in that state as a non-resident, can keep that business with Safeco. Okay, there are that operate, and good carriers, I might say, that operate regionally. But when you go outside that, that's a limitation. The other thing I think we bring to the table, and this is a big one, we're not only a Fortune 500 company, we're a Fortune 100 company. So we're in the top 100 companies in the United States. And I think that gives us the financial strength when things go sour, either in the economy or in other aspects, that we've got enough financial wherewithal to make it through and to not take major, how can I say this, harsh restrictions on their business. Okay. And so I think that's the big advantages with being with a carrier like us. There's other product advantages and et cetera. And agents are really good at knowing those. Most of them are. I just would encourage people to continue to remind your client, of why you go.
What advice do you have for the independent insurance agent?
I would say that the biggest thing I would say is always challenge yourself. Challenge the way you think if you're not challenging, if you're not waking up every day and doing something uncomfortable, a little uncomfortable, then you're probably not pushing yourself hard enough. And so when you're young, everything's uncomfortable because you don't know very much. As you get older in life, you maybe sometimes there's a lot of things that are very familiar, but if you're doing too many things that are easy, you're probably not doing the right things. And I would urge people to get a mentor. I really wished I'd have done that. I've been a mentor to many of my fellow coworkers over the years. It's given me satisfaction. It's helped me sort of rethink the way I do things a little bit because they would ask me questions. I would encourage you to have a mentor, and it could be a mentor that hopefully you respect, but hopefully that you is in a different area of the state, maybe, or a different part of the country. I have agents all over that belong to Facebook groups, and their mentors are somebody out in California or somebody that lives in Wyoming or wherever. It doesn't have to be your next door neighbor. Okay, so those are the big things that agents think about. The other thing is pay attention to industry trends. What's happening in the industry. There's plenty of trade you can read. You don't have to read them all, but you can just skim the highlights. Those are some other things that I would encourage agents to look at. Yeah.
When you're in, and kind of to elaborate a little bit more on uncomfortable, what are some uncomfortable things that agents should be doing, but they're afraid to do, or it's like you're saying, it's uncomfortable, out of their comfort zone. So what are some of those things that you identify that they could be doing to improve and grow?
New lead sources, I think, is a big thing. I mean, just plain and simple. We talked a second ago about social media. There are some people comfortable with it. There are some people that are not. If you're not, you need to either find somebody that is comfortable and hire them and let them be your social media person. That's okay, but you need to jump into that's just developing lead sources. I've told agencies many times over the years is don't just have one or two. If you got one or two, great, but have three or four. If you got three or four, great, but try to develop that fifth or sixth lead source, and don't assume there's limitations. If your town is small, then go to a bigger town. Go to the adjacent town. Spend the overhead to set up an office. Sometimes you can write business in that town, and by just being there sometimes. So those are some uncomfortable things, that I see.
So far with the last year, has there been some new lead sources that have come about in just your talking to agents?
I wouldn't say anything new. I would say some agencies have very good job of going deep in some of their lead sources in that they provide some sort of written statement to the lead source. We promise to deliver a quote within this time frame. We promise to respond to your email within 2 hours. So I wouldn't say necessarily new lead sources. I would just say going deeper with the ones that you have. If you've only got 5% of their business, percent of their referrals, the goal should be for next year is have 10%. One of the things we've always done at the company ranks is establish goals, and it's not okay necessarily to have the same number that I had this year. You need to stretch and to another level, and agencies need to do the same thing. I think they maybe sit down in a formal way and do some agency planning with them and their key person. I know a lot of the agencies have at least one key person. They may have a staff, plan with them, do some joint planning, do a retreat. Some agencies actually do retreats for planning purposes where they brainstorm about things just like that. Yeah.
What do you find is the biggest center of influence for insurance agents in creating lead sources? Would it be like real estate agents? Would it be mortgage brokers?
Yeah. I would say it's a combination of mortgage brokers and real estate agents, and I put them in one bucket, sort of. I know they're different, and I know they operate differently. You ask an agency all the time, how do they get leads? And they'll go referrals. That's their big. That's an answer. And look, I know referrals are extremely important, and they should be. I would try to develop more referral sources from your existing clients. If you haven't asked for your clients to give you a referral, you're not taking advantage of what you already have. And they, you don't have to say, hey, give me 10 referrals. Just, can you recommend me to somebody? Get one. If you got one, you may be able to, have that referral lead you to another one. So yeah, but lead generation is important. I mean, for an independent agency, it's crucial. And so I think sometimes we spend a lot of times going in the office and turning the lights on in the morning and turning the computer on and waiting for the phone we aggressively wait for the phone to ring. That's the saying we have. We aggressively wait for the phone to ring. And I think we need to be a little bit more proactive. Um, help make the phone ring, so, um, you know, anyway, the lead source is important.
Do you find many agents using direct mail still and finding that to be effective?
Direct mail, direct mail has a small return. You got to go into it knowing that you got a small return. I think it's a source. I think the more important part is who you mail to, how often. I have agencies who through constant contact will consistently mail to the same group of prospects. And ultimately that prospect will run into an insurance hurdle that they can't overcome themselves with their agent. And maybe they'll think about the agent that has been talking to them, sending them letters for the last, let's say, 2 years or the last 6 months, even. And so, I think that's one thing to think about, and that in terms of trying to be creative.
I sat in on a webinar about a week or two ago, and they were talking about now is the perfect time to do direct mail because a lot of people have
They're at
kind of
home.
given up on it and they're focusing more on social media, or they'll do one string of direct mail and then they'll be like, I didn't get anything off of it. So then they
Right.
just kind of push it to the side and don't really allow it to do the amount of touches that it takes for you to be right there at the right time when like the event of what you're talking about that they need help with their insurance and they'll pick up the phone. So now is, what they were saying, the perfect time to actually do more
Hmm.
direct mail than it has been in the
Hmm.
past because you have people home more and they're more excited actually to get
Sure.
mailed.
Yeah, yeah. They're more excited to get mail. They're more
Yeah.
excited to get mail, right? And so I understand that. And buying direct mail list with telephone numbers that are scrubbed for the do not call list. We offer a program like that at Safeco today.
Okay.
And I would just say direct mail without a phone list is not as good. I mean, it's cheaper, but it's not as good. So a phone list would be great. I had an agency years ago, true story. This agency is still in business. He actually hired a telemarketer, somebody that knew nothing about insurance. This individual worked a couple hours, maybe off and on, a couple hours a week for him, maybe 4 or 5, and all they did was make phone calls. That was long before do not call list, but you can scrub the do not call. The carriers will do that. Yeah.
Right. And that's another important thing. I'm glad that you mentioned that because they said you want to make sure that you call them within the week of them receiving that postcard to make that
Mm-hmm.
additional
Mm-hmm.
touch.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
then after the phone call, then send them another piece out or email or something like that, which is just anchoring in who you are and that you're a real person and you really care
Mm-hmm.
about their needs and you want to take care of that consumer, and that is very very effective marketing because then it opens the door for the relationship. They put
Yeah.
the voice with the picture and the information. So
Yeah.
all,
Absolutely.
all
Yeah.
good, great information. Any advice for a producer or a captive agent who is looking to get into the independent, in starting an
Yeah.
independent insurance agency from your perspective?
Yeah, I've run into a lot of them over the years, as you might imagine, a lot. I'd say this, first of all, I know it's scary. So let's just get that out. Let's get the 600-pound grill out of the room, and we know it's scary. I have yet had an ex captive go independent that has not made it a success. Not one situation have we ever had, and I probably have done, I don't know, over 100 ex cap on independent over my career. Not one has not. They've all been successful. With a Most of them have come back to me and said, "I wished you would have told me it was this easy, and I would have this much fun." I had a guy that I went to lunch with about 10 years ago. I appointed him and I went to lunch with him. And he told me later, he said, I wish you would have made me do this when you prospected me 5 years earlier. I wish you'd have made me do this. And I said, I can't make you do anything. I kind of trying to defend myself a little bit. But he said, as a captive, I didn't have a market for everybody. As an independent, I've got a market for just about everybody. If I'm willing to put in a little bit of work, I've got a market for them. And he said, that's a great feeling. And those are their words to me. Those were not words I said to them. I just couldn't believe how many people have come to me and said, I wish I'd have done this earlier when I was whatever. So yeah, that's probably the biggest thing. I think getting advice is great. I think finding other ex-captives that have already gone independent, to me, that's a great source of giving you some comfort. You might even say to yourself, heck, if they can do it, I can do it. And so that right there may be enough of a motivation to push the button, pull the cord, actually do it. Yeah. Yeah, those are the big things I would tell a producer or an ex-captive agent.
Yeah, a lot of them are coming over now from the producer side. We're starting to see a lot more producers, say, hey, I want to grow an agency for myself and create a legacy for my family. And so I feel like there's more and more producers getting, leaving the producer role and going into the ownership role. Have you
Mhm.
seen that as well, or?
Oh gosh, yes, yeah. That's somewhat of a natural. I mean, agency owners retire and producers. I mean, the younger ones that are aggressive and know they have confidence, high degree of confidence in themselves, are the ones that I see doing a lot more. And so, and I'm seeing it quite a bit. And it's encouraging. And they're doing great. I mean, just doing well. By any measurement, they're doing well.
Or like what are your thoughts on them using like an alliance or an aggregator or a network of some sort to help them go independent? You've
Yeah,
worked with many different types of networks over the years, so
yeah.
what's kind of like your feelings and thoughts and benefits, pros, cons of that for the
Well,
agent?
the networks obviously bring the ability to have multiple carriers. I mean, that is first and foremost. That's right out on the table. They should see that. People should see that clearly. But the second thing, and I think this is lost, is that the advice they get from somebody that is with that network that has seen other agencies go independent, I think it's that whole thing of I've aggregated, if you will, all of these 100 agents before you that have gone independent, and this is what I commonly see. This is traits. These are things that work. Do this, do this, do this. Don't do this, this, and this. That kind of thing. And I think that that's a great thing, and that they can bring to the table. For the agent to be successful, which is what they want. It's what the aggregator wants, and it's certainly what the carrier wants. We want agencies to be successful. Because if they're not successful, quite frankly, we're not going to be successful.
Right.
It's just that simple. And so, yeah, those are just some quick thoughts on that. Yeah.
Do you find that it accelerates their growth, like shortens up the time span of what it would take them to do on their own as an independent?
Oh yeah, no doubt. With more info, number one, more markets and more advice or guidance, if you will, they can't help be successful more quickly than they would have been on their own. And I think of an individual sitting there, he or she by themselves, trying to think of all the possible ways to grow, and with one or two, maybe two markets, it's going to be a challenge. I think it just more information is better. Uh,
And Safeco also offers some training programs, right, for the producers and CSRs for agents that are appointed with Safeco. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah, we've got a lot of, let's say, producer development program is one program we have. We have a lot of programs specifically geared to Safeco about how to quote our product, how to sell coverages, and et cetera. And then we have a CSR program that is designed to help it can be for an experienced person, an experienced CSR, or it can be for a brand new CSR, somebody with no experience. We will teach them the insurance jargon, if you will. I'll never forget, years ago I had an agency that put a person through this program, and this was a big agency. This was an agency of 10 or 12 people in the agency. And he made a comment to me. He said, I've never had one of my employees go through a formal program from a carrier ever. He said, generally, when I've hired an employee, I've given them a computer, a desk, and I said, here's a phone, go at it. And that was the pretty much the extent of the training. And then when they had questions, they came in to me asked, but I never had anybody that went through the formal program. And he said this after he had had one of his folks go through the program. And so I thought that was pretty interesting. And very well respected agents that's still in business here in Arkansas told me that once. Yeah. Yeah. So take advantage of the carrier programs. I've had note, a lot of them are free. Some of them are cost, but they're minimal cost. If the cost is too much, don't do it. But there's tons of free programs, not only from Safeco, but from the other carriers that are very, very helpful for agencies.
The future will look like for the independent agent?
Yeah, as far as as long as I can remember, there's been uh, trendsetters that have said the independent agency is going to go out of business. If you look at the stats, the number of independent agencies is actually going up. What is happening is the number of captives, at least the numbers are showing this, are going down. What's also going up is online agents online. Okay.
Mhm.
Their numbers are still relatively modest, but they're growing. And so I believe the independent agency in a growing force or workforce, if you will, coupled with some of the automation pieces that I know are out there, tied together can bring to their clients the best of both worlds. Okay. Can bring them the automation piece. And now I'm speaking of things like having gold service and service centers set up where the client is serviced 24/7. I mean, I've told agencies for years when you as an independent agency at 5 o'clock, that client has no service, no contact with you until 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock the next day. If they're with another carrier or captive, they can, or the Geicos of the world, they can call at 2 o'clock in the morning. Jake from State Farm with that lady coming downstairs in her pajamas is on purpose. State Farm's trying to advertise that they're there for them 24/7. And so I think an independent agency can do that. Right now, they can do that if they choose to. So I think the future's very, very optimistic, very optimistic. And um, you know, we're busy. I know you guys are busy with bringing in more and more new agents with experience too, I might add, not just new, but agents with experience. And that's good. I love to call on ex captives. I really do, because they were trained to sell. They know personal lines. They were taught personal lines very well. I want to give them their employers at the time credit. They were taught personal lines, and it's such a pleasure to deal with them because they understand the business and well. They understand it well.
That was one of the tips you said earlier was, stay up with the trends.
Mm,
And that is a big trend. A lot of captives are saying they're getting record profits. The ones who do some business over on the independent side. A couple of them, really big names actually this year for 2020, saw that the only profitable channel was their independent side.
side.
So that should be information for anybody out there to stay up on that trend and pay close attention, because you might be wanting to plan to make the leap and take that step of faith towards starting an independent insurance agency. And as Tom said earlier, you'll be going, why didn't I do that 5 or 10 years ago?
Right, right. Oh yes, I that I will take with me forever. I will remember that lesson forever, or those comments, because I didn't just hear it once; I heard it multiple times. And I can even tell you who said it to me. I can still remember the agencies that said that to me. Yeah, pretty interesting.
It gets anchored in because it's such a special time, a big milestone in their life, a huge celebration because a lot of them, they increase their revenue 100%, 50 to 100%
Mhm.
of what it was as a captive. So it's
Right.
just the power in that, in the numbers, and getting mentors. That was your other tip. So
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
think we're
yeah.
gonna see you as a mentor in the future. You're gonna be like, okay, I've been out of it long enough. I've had some fun. Now it's time to get back in there and start mentoring some folks. So
Stranger things have happened. The insurance business has been very, very, very good to me. And if there's something down the road that I think I could ever give back and help,
so you have some big news. Would you like to share?
well, yes, I would. Thank you, LaDonna. I've made a decision to retire from Safeco. My last day is January 29th. And, my spouse and I are going to do some traveling. We've already got travel scheduled. Some of it's subject to COVID, and anything gets more challenging in that direction. But we're looking forward to it. I've got grandkids I'd like to spend more time with. But we're yeah. So it's been a long career. I've been in the insurance business 40 years. I've been with Safeco 31 of those 40 years. I've been in underwriting twice. I was a commercial underwriter and a surety underwriter, and I've been in management twice with Safeco. And so I've had a pretty interesting background, a long career, and it's kind of time. I'm looking forward to it. I'll miss seeing agents. I sent them a note, and I'm going to miss seeing them. That's the regret I have, is I can't do it in person. So this is as close to as in person as I could get. I haven't seen a lot of them in 10, 11 months, 12 months, some, so it's kind of hard to say goodbye. It's kind of hard to say goodbye. As a side note, I have to say this: I have never owned a personal cell phone. Never. I've always
Really?
had company cell phones. Yeah, I rejoined Safeco in 19, and I had a cell phone that was bolted into my car, and it had a line on it, as you might expect, back in those days. But I have never owned a personal cell phone.
I did
I had to
not
go
know
out.
that.
I had to go out and get my own personal cell phone. And so I had to put my big boy pants on, as I tell my boss. And I've had a company car since 1984. So
Wow.
yeah, I've had a company car 36 years, you know, so that's kind of challenging. I'm actually buying a personal vehicle for myself. My spouse has one. We have one, but I've never had a personal car. So since 1984 anyway.
Wow.
Yeah. So yeah. So I've had to kind of do that. A few other little changes there, just but in a couple of weeks I'll wake up and not have to run off to it, 7 o'clock in the morning or 8 o'clock whenever I start, that kind of thing. So that'll be a challenge. It'll be interesting and a change, but looking forward to it. Looking forward to it a lot.
Can't
Yeah.
imagine that.
Yeah.
That's an interesting fact. Who would have known? Tom, hasn't had a personal car for himself
Yeah.
or a cell phone all
Right.
this time.
Yeah. 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 It's pretty revealing. I mean, but it's the truth. I mean, it is the truth. So I'm proud owner of two phones for a while, two phones that I need to answer, but soon it'll just be back to one, and so a lot of change, but it's good. So we're really looking forward to it.